Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my wife for going to her gender reveal appointment without me? My wife and I are expecting our first baby together. We made an appointment to find out the gender of the baby. To me, this is very important. I had hopes for a boy. But unfortunately, the day of the doctor's appointment, I had to attend my friend's birthday that I remembered last minute. I asked my wife if we could cancel the appointment and go another day, but she looked shocked that I even considered canceling the appointment and going to my friend's birthday, but I said I had no choice. She said canceling the doctor's appointment was off the table because these appointments are restricted to specific time and date, and we can't miss it, so she'll go alone. I told her no, because that'd be selfish of her, and besides, this will ruin the news of finding out if the baby is a boy or a girl. She cut the discussion and told me to go to the birthday party. I did, then later found out she didn't cancel the appointment and went with her mom instead. I came home seething and blew up at her. I started arguing with her about going behind my back and doing this without me. She said it wasn't her fault I prioritized a party over my child. I told her I didn't prioritize anything. She literally could have canceled and we would have gone another day. But clearly she was trying to steer the fight to a direction where I looked like the neglectful and irresponsible one. We fought some, then she said I'm probably angry with her because it's a girl, but I responded that she was wrong. She went outside the room claiming I was stressing her out. Now acts like I owe her an apology on top of everything else, but I feel upset and like I was deceived by her. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before the little update. You ask your wife to reschedule the gender reveal appointment because you wanted to go to a birthday party? Your wife gives a valid reason for not rescheduling, and you called her selfish because you wanted to go to a birthday party. You told your wife she couldn't go to the appointment without you because you wanted to go to a birthday party. How dense do you have to be to not realize the moment you ask her to reschedule the appointment that you were prioritizing the party over the appointment? I feel bad for your wife. You're the a-hole. Makes you wonder how old he is that he can't miss someone's birthday party. Anyone over the age of 16 would understand if you gave them a quick call and explained the situation about why you won't be able to make it. He's literally over here like, I had no choice. I had to go to the birthday party. WTF? You're the a-hole. To me, this is very important. I had hopes for a boy. But unfortunately, the day of the doctor's appointment, I had to attend my friend's birthday that I remembered last minute. If I was your wife, I'd be pissed too that you decided to go to a birthday party that wasn't even important enough to remember about until the last minute. You're the a-hole. Your priorities are wildly skewed. Appointments should take priority to the party you remembered last minute. You had a choice and you made a wrong one. Your wife is 100% justified in being pissed at you and you were the neglectful and irresponsible one. Will you miss the birth because some random thing you just remembered came up? Will you get pissed at your wife because she couldn't hold it in? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it did. Hope you will come back in a few months with, am I the a-hole because my wife couldn't hold the baby in for a day while I went to celebrate my friend's birthday a couple of hours away? It's so selfish of her to not prioritize my needs over her. Parties don't happen every day. Babies do though. Info. First off, Jesus. I swear I came here thinking I was somewhat justified in my frustration, but I was wrong it seems. Although I just want to point out that I did not just go to the party without telling my wife and having a discussion with her first. Also, the friend lives 2 hours away, so I had to leave at 2 and the appointment was at 4. I did not know she went, and I would have appreciated it if she at least was upfront with me about what she did. She could have said she was going anyway, but instead told me to go to the party and had me thinking she was going to cancel and reschedule. That it? For those who are speculating on the type of parent I am/will be, you really don't know enough to make those assumptions, so I'd appreciate it if you just focus on the conflict I just presented. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for suggesting my ex's daughter stop coming over for a while after she purposely messed up my relationships? I, 35 female, used to date a guy we'll call Jacob, 37 male. We dated for 9 months before we mutually agreed to break up. Jacob has a 16-year-old daughter we'll call Emma. Emma's mom is not in her life, and apparently all previous exes treated her horribly. Emma calls me mom. I never had an issue with it even after the breakup since I knew she didn't really have one and I cared for her. Emma often comes to visit me and stays over. About 2 months ago, I went on a date. Emma found out but acted really excited for me and even insisted on helping me pick out a dress. We had a blast and even went for some ice cream after. The date went well, and I thought things were going good. However, about a week later, I received a text from my date calling me a horrible person and telling me to never talk to him again. This happened for the next 3 days and went on, and at this point I knew something was up. On the 4th date, the same thing happened as the previous 3 dates. However, this time I decided to ask for an explanation. He then sent me screenshots of messages he had received from a random number claiming that I had a family and that I was cheating. I was shocked to see that the number which sent messages was Emma's. Emma came over later that day, and I showed her the screenshots and asked if she sent this to all my previous dates. She admitted to sending this message to all my dates and apologized, saying that she thought that if I got in a relationship, she would lose me. I felt bad and told her that she would never lose me and I would always be there for her. We had a heart-to-heart, and then got sushi and I thought this was the end of it. I went on another date last week. I had told my date about Emma and everything that happened with her. He thought it was funny and had no problem with her being in my life still. Well, a day later he sent me a message, and what do you know? Emma had messaged him the exact same messages she sent to everyone else. I called Emma and asked why she did this again, when we had already talked about it, and told her that if this doesn't stop, she will not be able to come over to my house for a while, which is something I don't want to do. She got mad and started swearing at me before saying that I should get back with her father because we didn't end on bad terms, before hanging up on me. I called her father and explained the situation. I told him that I think we need to get her a therapist as I think our breakup affected her more than we thought. I then told him that until the situation was resolved and she apologized, she shouldn't come over to my house for a while. I would still talk to her, just not see her until she starts therapy. Well, her father was furious. He called me everything in the book and said that while she was in the wrong and should see a therapist, I was an a-hole for essentially cutting her out of my life because of it. I explained that it was only temporarily until the situation was resolved. However, he hung up. It's been a day and I feel really bad as I'm the only healthy mother figure she's had. However, I don't think I am in the wrong as it's only until she starts therapy. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. People are asking how she got those numbers. I used to always give her my phone even after the incidents because I never had any reason to doubt her, and I thought the issue was resolved, so she most likely got it from there. I also have every intention of still talking to her, just not seeing her until she starts therapy. Added 2. Someone suggested that maybe the reason previous exes didn't like her is because she did something like this. So I asked some mutual friends, and apparently she has a habit of getting attached to women very quickly and calling them mom. Apparently it made all the exes uncomfortable, and a lot of them broke up with Jacob because of it. Not a-hole. She does need therapy, and this is not healthy. If you don't put some boundaries, she is going to keep doing the same over and over. This was very odd to me, to be honest. We dated for 9 months before we mutually agreed to break up. I consider Emma my daughter. She calls me mom even after the breakup. You dated only 9 months and she started calling you mom? That seems like way too fast for someone who was just dating less than a year and did not even live in the same house. It'd be more understandable if she was age 1 to 4 and didn't know better. But a teenager attaching themselves to an adult after a few months is really bizarre. It never sounded like it was a healthy relationship to start with. I can't remember the actual term, but I remember in SVU there being an episode with a kid who would get overly attached super quick. I wonder if it could be happening here. Not a-hole. You need to cut contact completely though. This is not normal behavior on her or her father's part. You dated 9 months, not 9 years. Well, I feel for Emma needing a motherly figure that isn't and shouldn't be you, especially since you were with her father such a short amount of time. The fact he thinks you're wrong and called you all the names is also the problem. I get you care for Emma, but this isn't a we need to situation. It's a he needs to. Because Emma isn't getting the message and your ex is enabling her. I upvoted this because I wonder if OP has ever considered how crazy it is to be called mom by a 16-year-old 9 months in. OP should do whatever she feels right. But I hope you please understand if you continue that your relationship with this child is a commitment. If you're not in for the long haul, you need to take a step back and cut contact. Also, yes, not having her in your home isn't the right move if you aren't cutting contact. Therapy should have been on the table from the very beginning. Next story. Am I the a-hole for limiting financial support to my daughter, 23 female, upon finding out she wants to live child-free? I have 2 children, a son 26 male who was recently married and plans to have children, and a daughter 23 female who is still studying. Before she told me she plans to live child-free, I offered to help her financially in buying a car, as I did with my son a couple years earlier. However, now that I know she doesn't plan to have children, I feel like the money will be much better spent helping my son with buying an apartment, which he plans to in some time. My reasoning is that the humble wealth I have accumulated over the years thanks to my hard work, I only could do because of my parents' financial contribution to my education, etc. So I would like to pass to future generations to help them going into life as well. I feel like supporting my daughter anywhere beyond the level of living a decent life would be a waste, because she won't pass it forward like my parents did to me. On the other hand, supporting my son would mean increasing life quality for his family and his children, allowing the wealth to flow down the generations and improve my grandchildren's future. My daughter, however, is very unhappy with my decision, because she obviously would want a car. She says I promised, which I did, but under different circumstances. She says it's unfair because my son doesn't have children yet as well, but it's not really important because he plans to have them. It is actually looking to buy an apartment for the family. I just don't want to indulge my daughter's wishes to get a car, when my son will clearly need the money more to make his family's life better. I, however, agree that it would mean I kinda would be breaking a promise. So would I be an a-hole to refuse to pay her for her car? You're the a-hole. You're trying to coerce your daughter's reproductive decisions. Stop it. If the consequence of her being truthful to you about how she feels about her future is that you will cut her off financially if you don't like what she wants for her future, she will be 100% justified in just stopping sharing with you her feelings about things. You're setting yourself up to ruin your relationship with your daughter. And if she ever does have children, for her to keep them away from you because she doesn't want them around a manipulative, disrespectful a-hole. You want the wealth to flow down to future generations, yet fail to see that your daughter is the definition of a future generation. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You made a promise and broke it for selfish reasons. Is your daughter only useful for the grandchildren you can get out of her? You sound awful. Opie, this is the message you're sending, that you value your daughter only for her ability to reproduce. If you ever expect her support in your old age or just when you go through painful moments in your life, you might want to reconsider, though it's likely too late. As it is, you've made a very cold and alienating decision that's going to come back and bite you later. If you kept your promise to help with the car and simply, and quietly, earmarked more of your money towards any grandkids in the future, that's one thing. Reneging on your promise and saying it's because your daughter plans to be child-free is manipulative and a prick move. You're the a-hole. Well, you can spend your money like you want. It's still an a-hole move to cut down financial support because she doesn't want to pop out kids. This is a highly personal choice. She doesn't owe you to get children, and you're being petty, basically telling her she's worth less now because she doesn't want to have kids. You're a terrible parent, and honestly, maybe being child-free would have been the better choice for you. You're playing favorites because she lives a different kind of life. So much to your parental and conditional love. Edit. I just want to make it clear that in no way am I trying to manipulate her reproductive decisions. I respect her decision, but I'm not doing this as a way to force her to have children. At no point have I suggested I'd reconsider if she got children against her decision. All I'm doing is reconsidering what amount of support will she need with no children to support, as compared to my son who will need to support the family. Now for the last story. Would I be the a-hole if I told my mom that my brother spends her money on his girlfriend? I'll try to make this short. About 2 years ago, my parents lost all their money to extremely expensive medical care. My dad never recovered and he's become bedridden. Due to this, my mom had to go back to work to make money for the both of them. I help them with the bills, but I don't make enough money to provide them with a comfortable life. My mom's job helps, but they're still struggling. My brother, 23 male, graduated college a year ago and is struggling to find a job. My mom had to borrow a large sum of money from her brother to pay for his college and now sends him monthly payments for rent, bills, food, etc. The thing is, my brother isn't making any efforts to find a job and seems comfortable living with the money my mom sends him. He always says that he's trying his best to find a job, but I know he isn't, and that he's going through some tough times and really needs my mom's help until he can find a job. He never mentions paying her back. My mom is 63 and is struggling in her job. I recently found out that he was dating someone. I was scrolling on Instagram and found her account a suggestion. I saw a couple of posts where she's bragging about all the expensive gifts her boyfriend, my brother, buys for her. I was very angry. He's clearly not struggling if he can't afford all these stuff for her. It was bad enough that he was making my 63-year-old mom send him her hard-earned money to help him until he can find a job. But to know that he doesn't even need it and is using it to buy gifts and go to expensive restaurants is outrageous. I thought I'd tell mom, but I don't want to be an a-hole, so I'm still thinking about what to do. So would I be the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It sounds like he is taking advantage of your mom. It's horrible of him to expect the mom to fund his lifestyle. This could be considered financial abuse too, although admittedly I'm no expert. You would not be the a-hole. It is outrageous that he is doing that and that he is not putting more effort on finding a job. Not the a-hole all the way. Screw that. He's being a leech. He is a grown man now and can fend for himself, or bring his dates back to mommy's basement. If Opie wanted to be really petty, they could fill the girlfriend in on where her expensive gifts are really coming from. And if she leaves, then the gifts are now non-issue, and brother gets a good shaming for his awful choices. Probably should just talk to the mom and be the bigger person, but it's fun to think about and not stay home.
Wife admitted to having an ongoing affair with her boss, who's married with 2 kids after only being married to me for 4 months. Hi all, I really appreciate this community and found it very helpful throughout this process, so I'd like to share a truncated version of my story. My now ex-wife and I had been together for about 6 years before we got married last June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months later, and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly, while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the longer hours seemed to be par for the course, but she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends, spending a lot of time with her horse, and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a go-getter, even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship, but she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which was a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking of what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible, so I started to lose sleep thinking I was possibly losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life, because I couldn't believe you could lose the person you married so shortly after tying the knot. So I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that was causing her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issues we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time and I just didn't know it. D-Day. I organized a romantic weekend by the beach despite my suspicions, in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her disdain. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner. She didn't even reciprocate. And later that evening she had me take a not safe for work photo of her in a bubble bath, and when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she be honest with me. She denied everything for a while, but I convinced her I had proof when I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack, which I never experienced before, and after finally calming down, I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife, and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she was going to run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never who I married. The real her was this manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night and sent me to my parents' house, and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. Apparently, HR had to get involved, and my ex-wife quickly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she made the decision, and I'm just completing her plan. Aftermath. Success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends and found a great job in California. I'm learning to love myself again and have realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids. Now for the top comments. Wow, I can't believe she had you take a picture of her in the bathtub for her boss. These cheaters are seriously twisted in the head. Congrats on exiting that situation. I bet it excited her to know her husband was taking it for her affair partner. What a twisted individual. Hilarious how it backfired on her, with the boss pressuring her to leave OP, meanwhile he had no intention of leaving his wife for her. At least the affair partner was taking out the trash for OP. Yeah, they are. My soon-to-be ex-wife was planning on inviting her affair partner over with his girlfriend to our place for the Super Bowl. They both agreed that it would be amazing, and that it would be their little inside thing. The mindset of a cheater is truly evil and devious. 3.5 months into divorce. Come on. It will really be very helpful for some of us if you can share the process by which you were able to have seemingly been able to detach from your partner rather quickly and with minimal damage. Most of us here are still reeling even after a year. Thanks. It is not easy and the pain still lingers. But you have to focus on yourself and improving yourself in any way you can. Exercising, eating better, adventuring, spending more time with friends and family. It all helped me cope with the trauma. I even worked hard to refine my resume and reached out to connections to find new job opportunities. It's not that I disliked my previous job, but I wanted a complete reset. I focused a lot of my energy at my new job to cement myself within the organization and distract myself from the pain. I still have trouble sleeping some nights, but as I got healthier and happier, I exuded a confidence that attracted the people around me. The best thing you can do is show growth and maturation despite these embarrassing circumstances. Show others that your ex does not define you, and those around will start to admire you for a quality they never knew you had. Everything takes time, and I promise you it was not easy for me in the early stages. But use this opportunity to find yourself again and evolve. Whatever happened to the ex-wife? Did she lose her job? Did the boss lose his job? What happened to the boss? Is there any chance they will end up together? How did her family and friends react to the news of her infidelity? They're not ending up together. HR set forth rules that no longer allowed them to work on cases together to protect the firm from liability, but my ex-wife inevitably left and found a new job. I don't know how her family and friends reacted, since I don't know what kind of story she spun for them, but her father reached out to me via text with some very kind words. That was very big of him to do that, and I am very grateful for his kindness. OP, thanks for your comment on the process for recovery, which is right on. Success is the best revenge. My story is similar to yours, going back to the 80s, where we all worked together. My ex-wife also thought that her and affair partner would ride off into the sunset, but soon realized that he just wanted to hook up. I posted my story in hopes that some betrayed spouse may listen to an old man, and with the process you've mentioned and what I'm about to say, will get them on their way. Like you, for me it was about self-improvement and reshaping my life. I wanted my ex to be sorry of the choices that she made. To the betrayed, if you've had enough, reached your threshold for pain, and want to break away from a codependent relationship, as OP states, exercise, join a gym, and do physical activity. I played sports and took karate with my kids. Spend as much time with your kids, if you have them. This will help them get through what your partner has destroyed. Change your hair, get a new wardrobe which helps restore self-esteem and confidence. Be social and visit family and friends who are your support. Think about how to enhance or even change your career. I took night classes, where I met my wife of 36 years. At the same time, getting promotions on the same job, reaching a top position in management. She remained there, but affair partner was fired. I sit back in retirement after a successful career, happily married to the love of my life, and enjoying our grown children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Just a glimpse into a possible future for anyone who chooses themselves and their children. My oldest son gave a speech at a function describing me as accomplished and hero. My heart burst. Thank you for sharing this. That glimpse into the future certainly gives me confidence and puts me at ease. Also, love that you got the credit you deserve from your eldest son. Kids recognize the sacrifices in the long run. I still find it incredulous the twisted mindscape that cheaters create. They need to somehow invent justification for their choice to cheat, and voila, an entire fantasy landscape springs into existence full of running away. What the heck is this even? As if they are both just going to quit their jobs and potentially walk away from any children involved to move away and live happily ever after. And just being with each other in happiness and love without the outside world ever intruding on them. And just as inexplicably, they want to come home once the bubble pops and they are left with the consequences of their actions. Sadly and surprisingly, many betrayed spouses are willing to take back their betrayer because they still felt the love they had for that person, even though that person demonstrated unequivocally that they don't have the same feelings for you. What is it about our society that people feel entitled to lie and cheat and be just awful partners, but somehow still feel entitled to be in a relationship with the person they are betraying in such an awful manner? I told my ex-wife that if she felt any disdain for me to excuse her actions, so be it. But what did the boss's wife and kids ever do to her? She even had me meet the boss and his wife over lunch. It was an extremely selfish and stupid act on her part. To be honest, I may have worked on it if it was a one-time thing and she was truly remorseful. But to go back to him on numerous occasions and plot to leave me made the situation a very painful no-brainer. Your ex met her affair partner with his wife. Was this after you blew up their affair? Is your ex-wife's affair partner still married? Did he and your ex-wife get fired from their jobs? This was before I blew up their affair. I'm not sure, but I think affair partner stayed married for the kids. Now for the last story. I saw her after a few years. Wow. My ex and I share a friend group. We met them together and have known them for years. A few people decided not to associate with her anymore after what she did to me, but most people accept her friendship still, and that's okay with me. We were together a decade and had known these people the last 4 years of that. A couple days ago my friends threw a party, and on the way, someone told me she would be there. I said that's fine, and jokingly said she'll just have to deal with how good I look. I always expect the likelihood of her being at a party with these friends, but it hasn't happened in 3 years. I was prepared for feelings and maybe some physical avoidance. I got there, was having a good time, and then saw someone I didn't recognize at all. I started walking in that direction, and then it hit me. It was her, plus about 60 to 80 pounds, and she was rather petite before. No fat shaming, but it was wild to not be able to recognize her. Her voice was so ruined from cigarettes that I couldn't recognize that either. Anyway, later in the night, I thought I saw her again, but it was someone else. Then I realized I just couldn't recognize her anymore, and it felt really good. I do look freaking awesome right now too. I cut in my first six-pack a couple years back, and have put my health in a much higher priority than it used to be. I wonder if she had a hard time recognizing me. It also made me realize that the extra weight I had, about 80 to 90 pounds extra, was because I didn't care about myself when I was with her. I wondered if the weight she put on was partially from shame of what she did to me. I met her boyfriend. He came up and introduced himself to me. She didn't talk to me, as I told her in a letter long ago to pretend she doesn't know me and doesn't want to know me because I appear totally uninteresting, and I'll give her the same respect. She complied, and that also felt empowering. He wasn't who she cheated with, and he was actually a lot like me. I hope she doesn't treat him how she treated me, because he seemed like a genuinely good person. The guy she cheated with and started a relationship with was an abusive coke dealer and was an enabler during a time that she was spiraling into addiction, lying to me about it, and refusing my help, which was very non-aggressive, just concerned and looking for ways I could help her, but she didn't want help, she wanted coke. Apparently, her parents had to lock him out of a family holiday dinner for hitting her. Those were always such warm bonding times for the family. It's wild to think of it getting violent. Last night I had a nightmare that I was at a small gathering, and she showed up looking how she used to, and I used the bathroom. When I came out, everyone was gone because she had convinced them all to go to a show while I was in the bathroom. It was frustrating and I couldn't reach anyone and drove into town, finding a friend at a gas station and hanging out with him. It was pretty chill, and I realized that just connecting with someone who cared about me was much more important than going out and getting crazy. I woke up feeling pretty good about it. I think my mind is telling me there is still trauma, but I am healing well. I was able to turn around the nightmare into something much better, and it seems like a reflection of my life. I'm feeling pretty good about things. Oh, and last night I had a date, the first one in over 4 years, and it went really well. Keep your stick on the ice, survivors. You can make it to the next step, which is thriving. Just keep doing what you need to for yourself. Love yourself, build yourself, be with people who respect and love you, let the bad feels come and go, hold on to the good feels, identify not with what has happened to you, but with the way you can overcome it, and create beauty from destruction. It is all there, and it can be so hard to find. Just look into yourself and focus on what brings you love and motivation. Sometimes it takes practice, patience, going through the motions even if you don't feel like it, and telling yourself positive things that don't feel true at times. Don't let it feel like a waste of time. Fight that feeling and say, no, F you, sad me. I'm going to force myself to have a good day. Even with clinical depression, I have been able to turn around a day sometimes just by putting myself on a bicycle or walking out into the woods in a bad mood not feeling like it, and coming back on a much better one. Please know you are loved, you are important, you will overcome this, you will thrive. As a great man once said, my ex said she gave me the best years of her life. I saw a recent picture of her, and I guess she was right. That's rich. I really love what you wrote, and I'll probably be reading the last few paragraphs every day this week to try to pull myself out of the slump I've been in. I'm really happy for you, OP. You have worked really hard on yourself and have chosen some well-deserved happiness, and I can almost see you shining from where I am. I really appreciate it, glad my words can help. You deserve to feel loved, especially by yourself. Any advice that helped you work on yourself? I realized that there were a lot of days at the beginning where I didn't want to do anything at all. I just pushed myself to either choose one act of self-love or self-improvement every day. Self-love and self-improvement are pathways to each other. You love yourself, you'll want to improve. You improve, you'll appreciate yourself more. So, I would choose things like going out for a bike ride or learning a new hobby or skill, getting the nice steak at the market instead of the cheapest one, or enrolling in a course. I would take myself on a date, think to myself, where would I go if I was trying to impress someone, and take myself there. It sometimes felt forced, but just going through the motions it would help me start to feel it. I also dropped most carbs. They trigger your dopamine receptors and can worsen depression. It was tough at first, like getting through an addiction literally, but after a couple weeks, you don't even care about pasta or sugars or whatever.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy my husband an expensive car, even though I have the money? My husband, male 35, and I, female 30, have been married for the past 10 years, and we have 5 amazing daughters together. Because of that, I dropped out of college and have been a stay-at-home mom for the past 10 years when we had our oldest daughter. My husband is the breadwinner, and I take care of all the chores and childcare. While my husband earns quite a bit of money, which allows us to live comfortably, he is also obsessed with budgeting. Thus, I typically only have enough for household expenses. For the past 5 years, I have been working on a series of books. I have been writing everywhere I could. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and while I sacrificed a lot of sleep, I have managed to finish my series, unbeknown to my husband. I kept it a secret because he always considered it a waste of time. It was tough, but I managed to get an agent and was incredibly lucky to get a deal to have my series published. I was ecstatic, and when they told me how big my advance would be, I almost fainted. It's much more than I expected for a first-time deal, like in higher 5 digits. I haven't told my husband yet that I had to borrow money from my sister to get an accountant. Ideally, I want that money saved up should something happen because I honestly don't know the details of our home finances or for our kids' future, whatever will be needed. Plus, I would love to have some spending money without asking my husband Greg. However, Greg found my contract, and he is now demanding I get him a new car for Christmas. A very expensive new car, which cost the majority of my advance. I politely refused, saying that he didn't need a car that expensive, and that money was supposed to be saved up. I tried to explain my position, but he wouldn't have it. He basically called me an a-hole without actually using the word. He said that because he supported me all these years, I owe him, and without him and his money, I wouldn't be where I am now. He's told me that I either buy him a car, or I have to start paying for household expenses half and half. The thing is, I would still be a stay-at-home mom, and I don't know if my book will be a success. For all I know, this will be the only money I will ever get from my book deal because it will flop. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to buy my husband a car even though I have the money? Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. You have lived off his money for years, but you keep your own income a secret? Yeah, you're the a-hole. Mind you, he is definitely the a-hole too for demanding an expensive car and the way he spoke to you. But why would his money have to go to the household and your money to you? I wanted to work, but he insisted I was stay-at-home mom. I was going to come back to work when all our kids are in school. but he kept wanting more children, which kept pushing me further from coming back to work. I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but it was his dream, and with so many kids, it was only reasonable. I don't have access to our main account. I don't even know how much he earns. I only thought it's fair that I kept my money aside, because I know very well that he has his own savings account separate to our main money. OP, everything you've said here is alarming, and points towards abusive behaviors. Do not give him a dime of your money. And please, have a hard think on whether this is the way you want to continue living your life. I know you have 5 kids together. I get it, and understand. A 10-year marriage is a long time to throw away, but I was married to someone for years who mentally and emotionally mistreated me. He demanded that I hand over all of my money to him and would never let me have a dime. He told me my money was his to do what he wanted with it, threw away all of his money on drugs and God knows what else. It even controlled the finances and hid them from me, while he paid none of the bills and lost every place we tried to live in, forcing us to constantly be evicted. I wanted to get a job at a time but couldn't, because he took the only vehicle we had at a time and never allowed me to go anywhere, not even with him because he was too busy meeting up his drug buddies and wanted to keep it a secret. Your situation is not as extreme, but your husband is also abusive. He is controlling and entitled. He is extremely critical of you and doesn't respect your life goals or even any of your wishes. Even worse, he ridicules your hopes and dreams, and now that you succeeded at doing something he said you could never do, he is now demanding that you spend the money on him. You are being manipulated. There is no doubt about it. You're also being blackmailed and punished by being told you'll face serious consequences if you don't give him what he's demanding. I would not buy him a car. You do not owe him a thing. The only thing you owe him is to pack suitcases for you and your kids and to demand you either straighten up or I'll leave. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend she should have asked me to move in? My girlfriend, 26 female, and I, 27 male, have been together for just over a year. She'll be graduating in January from graduate school and has a well-paying job lined up. Her parents bought an apartment years ago as an investment property, and she'll be living in it and taking over the mortgage. It's a very spacious 2-bedroom that will be a total of $2,300 per month, which average in our area. It's pretty pricey and costs over half of her monthly income, so I was concerned about her living there alone. This is when I suggested that I move in. It's a great space, and we would have our own rooms, and would get to live together, and she would be able to have a more affordable rent. I currently live by myself, and my rent is $2,000 a month, so it would help me too. So basically, win-win-win. She said she's always lived at home, and so she wants to be by herself before deciding if she wanted to live with anyone else for a while, and not to worry about it and should figure it out. I thought maybe her parents would help out with the rent, and I dropped it. Then last week, she told me about how she was excited to move in soon, and then told me she'd gotten a roommate and they'd been furniture shopping together. Her roommate is a girl she completed grad school with. Obviously, I was hurt. I offered to move in first and we're dating, which I think means more than a classmate. I also said how having a roommate is not very be by herself of her. She said she thought we were too early in our relationship to live together, and living with a partner is different from living with a friend. I think she's just making excuses for blindsiding me. I said she should have at least considered me and that I was hurt that she put a friend above me, when I honestly and genuinely try to help her. I've kinda accepted that she's moving in with her classmates, and I've been cordial about it so she can be excited about this move and her new job. But I'm still hurt. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You're dating. You aren't married. She has stated outright she's not ready to live with a boyfriend. You can be hurt as you're entitled to your feelings, but at the same time, do you really want to force something on her she isn't ready for? Also, living with a friend is massively different than living with a romantic partner. It just is. That you don't get that is a little red flaggy. I mostly agree with you, but she did initially tell him she wants to be by herself, not she's not ready to live with a boyfriend. I would understand why he's upset that she would then get a roommate, because that's definitely not the same as being by herself. But I completely agree that living with a partner is a completely different beast than just having a roommate. Adobe needs to realize that. My guess is that it was just simple miscommunication with her initial comment. It could just be a matter of phrasing though. I moved out on my own from my mom's place when I went to college, but I still had roommates. She could have meant she wanted to live with not family/partner before making that commitment. Learning how to live with a roommate will also better prepare her to live with a partner down the line. You're the a-hole. You're attempting to emotionally manipulate someone into taking a romantic step they explicitly said they aren't ready for. Asking to move in when you weren't invited was already borderline. Pretending to be blindsided that your girlfriend doesn't want you to move in after she clearly communicated that is ridiculous. You were not entitled to live in your girlfriend's home. You keep saying you were trying to help? I don't buy that at all. Why are you so upset that she doesn't need your help? Agreed. He's trying to help himself to her spacious apartment, less rent, and pushing her boundaries on living with a partner. I don't see him lasting much longer with his cordial attitude. You're the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend he needs to move? For context, I, 30 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 31 male, going on a year. When we first met, he let me know that he is divorced with 3 children, 6 male, 4 female, and a stepson, 8 male that he considers his son. He also let me know his situation was unique and he was okay if I didn't want to continue dating. Him and his ex-wife are great friends. They simply got married too young and realized they were different people. Neither wanted to split custody, so they turned their home into a duplex. That way they could both see the kids every day, and if his son wanted to see him, he could just come over. I cannot have children, and he explained he would not have more. Although it was a unique situation, he is a great guy, so I kept it going. Now a year in, he still is a great guy and I love him. However, I can't help but feel like I'm on the side of the real family. The ex still comes to all the holidays, the kids knock and can come in whenever. One of the kids is not really even his, but still has open access to him. I think now that we're serious, things need to change. I suggested a move so that we can maintain a life outside of the family, and he can move on. Well, he blew up and called me an a-hole for suggesting it. He said he isn't and never will be a weekend dad. But I'm just trying to look out for us and start our family. My sister agrees I'm the a-hole, since he was upfront. But am I really? Would having him move out really be an a-hole thing? Now for the comments. Isn't your role be the romantic partner? Did you want to be his daughter too? No, I want to be family. I want to come up with holiday traditions or be going to his mom's house. But his ex still does that, and I feel like a side piece. Info. Do you and his ex get along? Why can't you all spend holidays together? We tolerate each other. As far as I know, she doesn't mind me. I get the impression she doesn't really care about me at all. And I can be there. But then I'm at her house with her kids, doing her traditions, and it feels like I'm with her husband. I feel like you're the a-hole here. You knew his situation going into this. It works for them, so there's no reason to move. You feeling outside of family is a you issue. It doesn't mean you need to separate him from his kids. From reading your comment, you feel outside of family because you don't like their parenting arrangements. Well, guess what? He was parenting these kids long before you came into his life. He'll still be parenting them after you leave. It actually sounds like they have an amazing arrangement, and it certainly wouldn't stop you having a life together if he didn't move. Because they still operate as a family other than romantically. I feel like I'm only feeling the romantic part, but he has his family. One of the kids is not really even his. You're the a-hole. Wow. Right? I hope he sees this and leaves her. You're the a-hole. His kids are already his family. And if you want to be a part of it, then you're gonna have to accept the kids. From the way it sounds, you didn't ask him to move in with you. You asked him to move away from his kids. Last story. Am I the a-hole for abandoning my wife on Christmas to be with my grieving friend? This gets brought up in every single argument we have, so I'd like an outside verdict to settle it once and for all. My wife Bday, 29 male, chose to spend Christmas with my in-laws last year. Because they live a few states from us, we don't get around to seeing them in person very often. We both took time off work and flew in the week before the 25th. It wasn't my dream way to use my personal time off or spend holidays, but it was valuable family time for my wife that we hadn't gotten in a while. 2 days after we arrived, I got a heart-wrenching call from my closest friend, 26 male, telling me that his father likely wasn't going to make it. I knew he had been in the hospital for a while, but now it looked like things were taking a turn for the worst. This is someone I've known since I was 16, whose family I'm closer to than my in-laws. This is also a person who is extremely selfless and rarely asks for anything for himself. When he asked me to come be with him, I dropped everything to make that happen. There's no limit on what I would do for him on a good day, So in circumstances like these, coming home felt like the only option. Flights around that time aren't always easy to come by, and the one I booked was fairly expensive. In my rush to get home as quickly as possible, I ended up booking the ticket under mine and my wife's shared bank account. Once I realized this mistake, I immediately transferred money from my account to cover it. My wife was not happy about any of it. She begrudgingly offered to come with me, but I declined, saying the most of my time would likely be spent in a hospital waiting room. I didn't want her to be at home alone during the holidays, or awkwardly standing by a comforted friend. I reassured her that I would be back before the 25th, and that she should continue her family time as usual. That didn't end up happening. Friend's father passed the following day, and with grief, funeral preparations, and a lack of viable flights, I didn't end up going back to be with my wife and her family. Me missing Christmas has gotten thrown in my face a lot since then, and it always makes me uncomfortable. I know I hurt my wife, but sometimes it's difficult for me to sympathize with her in this situation when my friend was going through the worst time of his life. Am I the a-hole? Why did you promise you'd be back by Christmas? The dad was dying, right? But you thought you'd leave, spend a day flying home, a day with your buddy, a day flying back, and that was enough? Honestly, it sounds implausible that you'd fly out a week before the 25th, spend 2 days, then a day of travel there and a day back, and anticipate you'd have the perfect flight available for returning without checking. Did you honestly think you could make this work? It was more of a platitude than anything, I'll admit. I had a flight to catch and was expected to give an answer about when I'd make it back before I could go. I didn't have those answers yet. Yeah, that's the problem. You lied because you were too scared to be honest, and your wife is still angry. Unless you are currently writing from your in-laws' home where you returned for a do-over, you're the a-hole. Must be tough liking your friend more than your wife, and his family more than yours. I wouldn't say it's tough liking his family more than my in-laws. All family dynamics are complicated, and who we get along better with is because of a lot of different factors. My life and his life have been so entwined over the last 10 plus years that it just makes sense in my mind. His little brother feels like my little brother. His parents feel like my own, etc. You're the a-hole. You didn't want to spend Christmas with your wife's family and used the aftermath as an excuse. If it was really because of flights, you wouldn't have added the rest. I hope you're spending this Christmas with your wife's family to make up for it. Yes, exactly. In fact, I'm sure he was behind his best friend's father's death just to get out of spending Christmas with her family. This is really reaching. Nowhere is it stated that he has any issues with or wants to get away from her family.
My ex dumped me because I was a softie. Now she wants me back. I, 27 male, had been previously in a toxic relationship with my ex-girlfriend, who we will call Rachel. Rachel and I had nothing in common, which to this day makes me question why we even dated in the first place. We started dating after we've been hanging out with the same friend group when we were both 20. She was the one who asked me out first, which I agreed, since I liked her a bit. Dated for 4 months, then made it official that we were boyfriend and girlfriend. After a year, she started getting annoyed with everything I do. She would go crazy if she saw me baking or knitting. I love doing this stuff because my mother taught me those things since I was a child. I was the shy type who didn't like talking a lot or doing what other boys do these days. I can describe myself as a calm person, but she didn't like that. She hated who I was. She would constantly scream at me to be a man and stop acting like a woman. To be honest, it hurt a lot, especially when my self-esteem was really low. Day after day, it started getting worse. When her birthday came, I baked a cake especially for her, since I knew she loved cheesecake. Guess what she did? She was livid and screamed at the top of her lungs about how I was a weakling and threw the cake I made her. She went to her friend's house that night, while I cried myself to sleep. The last straw came when I adopted my cat Nina. She was a small kitten when I adopted her. I loved her the moment I laid my eyes on her, so I decided to take her home with me. When Rachel saw her, she almost lost her mind and started screeching about how disgusting it was to have a cat. She tried to take Nina, but I pushed her away and finally snapped. I told her how I had enough of her and I wouldn't let her bring me down anymore. I wouldn't change who I was for someone who doesn't even appreciate me. It was a huge argument, and I told her to get the hell out of my apartment because it's over, and I wouldn't let anyone disrespect me this way again. She started packing her things, while telling me that she doesn't need me and will find herself a real man. A few years passed, and I met my now wife. She was the complete opposite of Rachel, adorable, calm, sweet, loving, a literal angel. I met her because I constantly saw her whenever I brought Nina to the vet. It turned out she was there because her father worked as a vet. She came to visit him and play with other pets. It was so adorable, and I felt myself developing feelings for her. We started talking and I discovered that we share almost the same interests. It's like we were made for each other. We talked more and I built up the courage to ask her out. The date was perfect. We talked and laughed, laid down chatting all night. I told her about my story with my ex, which she comforted me for and told me that she doesn't know what she lost, that I was a wonderful and a sweet man that lacks nothing. I started tearing up and she hugged me. She was so sweet to me and loved playing with Nina. Every time I looked at her, I thought to myself, yes, this is the woman I want to marry. After a few dates, we became official and I couldn't be happier. We got married and I felt like I was on cloud 9. Fast forward last year, I get a knock on my door, which to my surprise, it was Rachel, my ex, who made me miserable. I tried closing the door, but she held it saying she came here to apologize. I told her whatever it is, it's forgiven and forgotten, but she said it was a different thing. Turns out, one of my friends gave her my address. Don't worry, I already cut off that friend. Anyways, Rachel started apologizing, and I could see the color drain from her face when she saw the wedding ring on my finger. Suddenly she broke down and said how much she missed me. She wanted us to be back together, which disgusted me. She continued crying about how her past relationships were toxic, and her exes treated her like trash, while I treated her like a queen. I told her, F no. I wouldn't leave the woman who loved me for who I am and made me happy, for someone who never gave a damn about my feelings. I told her to get lost, or I'll get a restraining order, then close the door. That day, I told my wife everything. She was so happy for me that I stood up for myself, and told my ex how much pain she caused me. This was last year. Now we have a beautiful daughter together. I'm glad I met such a sweet woman who made me happy and started a family with me. But I'm mostly happy that in the end, I knew my worth. Now for the top comments. OP, I'm very happy for you, as the post is written. But why are you telling the internet about it a year later? Do you actually still think about her and this happening? Because that is kind of worrisome. If you are still hung up on her, don't just pretend that it's because you're proud of yourself. Make yourself confront your feelings, whether alone or with a therapist, before it potentially festers. No, I don't feel anything towards her. The only thing I feel towards her is hatred for the way she treated me. I only shared because I saw a lot of people here sharing their experience and telling the world, so I decided to do it too. So why title the post as your ex being the topic, when you could have made it be all about your wonderful journey, as a post encouraging people to stick to their morals? I don't know, man. I'm leaning to that you haven't realized you're not over her. I only wrote the title this way to summarize what happened, and I already said that since a lot of people posted about their experience, I decided to do it too. As for my ex, I've already got over her the moment we broke up, because I realized she's not worth my time. I shared my experience here to talk about some things that happened in my life. Maybe someone who was in the same situation as me sees it and learn that cutting off toxic people will make their lives better. Yours is such an uplifting story. You did everything without betraying your principles, and now you have a beautiful family. Yup, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad you found your own happiness. Your wife sounds lovely. That audacity of that ex-friend though, what was their reaction to being found out and kicked out? Yeah, she's the best. I'm lucky to have her. As for my ex-friend, she was the closest one to my ex. She didn't really care about us, but she had a crush on one of the guys in the group, so that's the only thing she's upset about. He's a friend of mine, and he rejected her when she confessed to him. He told her how disrespectful and disgusting she is for betraying me like that. Next story. My brother is blaming me for his marriage ending, and I'm sick of it. My brother's wife has filed for divorce, to the surprise of no one except my brother. They have been married for 19 years, and they dated for something like 5 years before they got married, because they were both in university. My brother is 44 and his wife is 43. For years, it's obvious to anyone with eyes that his wife feels unappreciated. My brother publicly stopped putting any love towards his wife. He cared less about hygiene and his appearance. He looked like a slob. Now, when it came to other people like his younger co-worker, he had no problem spending big money on a new suit and getting a haircut, and cleaning up for the party to celebrate her promotion. I don't think he cheated. I could be wrong, of course. His wife doesn't think so either, but she was upset that he could pay attention to other women, but not her. The co-worker was just one instance. His wife tried to make an effort to take him out and dress up, to keep in shape for him, but he literally ignored her. I remember one time a few years back, she budgeted and saved for a vacation for them to spend time together, and when they got there, my brother ditched her at the hotel to go fishing. When I got married, he was completely fine to dress up and bragged to my sister-in-law to try to impress her. He loved paying attention to other women except his wife. She's been trying for years. She's told him she felt unappreciated. She's tried to bring excitement to their marriage. Everyone who knows them, including me, pointed out to him that his wife was unhappy. He never did anything about it or tried making an effort. And this was all with public stuff. I can't even imagine what it was like in their private lives. As soon as my niece turned 18, his wife filed for divorce. It's not even about money for her, since they don't own a home themselves. There is no child support because my niece is 18. They both work, so neither of them will pay or owe spousal maintenance. She is just tired of feeling unappreciated. Now my brother is blaming everyone except himself for the divorce. He blames me for not telling me his wife was unhappy. Firstly, I did, and secondly, so did she. He's sulking and complaining all the time, and he's into the alcohol a lot these days. I'm sick of being blamed though, and I told him if he doesn't stop, I'll stop talking to him. He ignored the signs for years, and his wife outright telling him. I don't blame his wife for leaving at all. Your brother sounds like he has all the self-awareness of a table leg. She's right to have left, to be honest. All you can do is remind him that the only one responsible for what happens to him is him. If he continues to play the blame game, there's no point engaging. Self-awareness of a table leg. This is my new insult now. Feel sorry for the wife. 19 years of marriage and 5 years dating. That's her entire adult life wasted on this guy. Like, how does someone even mentally recover from that? I really hope she has some incredible times in her future, dating, traveling, just enjoying being appreciated as a woman should be. Go live like she's 20 because she only has her work commitments. No child, no husband. Go absolutely freaking mental. My mother-in-law didn't divorce until she was in her early 50s. She's remarried to a man that adores her. And while he's not perfect, he's attentive and caring. She's finally getting love and appreciation from a non-narcissist. Everyone in the family loves him, even my parents and my brother love him. She's happier than she's ever been. And he did well for himself. Not crazy rich, but comfortable. So they're talking about retiring early and getting a little bungalow somewhere and traveling the world together. Classic walkaway wife. Coming from one who was married for 20 years, listening to his family questioning why I stayed, like for years. Of course, when I left, they were all shocked, and I was persona non grata. I was gonna say men wake up, but I think there are many walkaway husbands out there too. Some people can't see, understand, or comprehend how their inaction impacts the people they live with and love. If you love someone, let them know through your actions. Be present, respect what matters to them even you don't have a clue why it matters. It matters to them and that's all that needs to matter. Cut him out either way. The brothers sound so narcissistic, and I'm 100% sure he cheated. There is no reason to spend money on another woman unless if you did. Provide your soon-be ex-sister-in-law with emotional support, she will need it. And make sure she doesn't go back to that garbage. Wanting or trying to cheat, but being unable to seal the deal. Last story. My husband asked me to leave while refusing to kick out our roommate who he cheated with. Plus mini update. Okay, so it's as bad as it sounds. My husband and I have been together for about 8 years now. Most of our marriage was wonderful and I thought he was a great man. About a year and a half ago, my friend asked if she could stay with us because she had nowhere else. My husband at first was against this and I begged him until he agreed. She moved in and everything was fine until a week ago. My husband comes to me and says we have problems last week. He doesn't like the way I'm behaving towards him. The only thing he says is wrong is that I had a mental relapse and starting to act in a way he doesn't like. I tell him I will change. I tell him I'm just under a lot of stress because I work or go to school 7 days a week while he sits at home and no legal job. Now at this point, I had a feeling in my gut that something was off. My roommate lets me borrow her phone, and I find hurtful messages he sent her, asking for goodnight kisses and calling her pet names like honey. My heart breaks and I confront him. He asks for a separation so he can think about if he still wants to be with me, and asks me to move out at least for now. Even though this really hurts, I agree. The only thing I ask for in return is to make her leave too, since he clearly has a thing for her. He refuses. After we both talk to the roommate, she bursts into tears and goes to her room. My husband gets mad at me and asks me to leave because if I am there, he will feel bad for going to comfort her. What about my comfort? I am his wife and have always been loyal to him. I am so hurt and shocked. I never thought he was this kind of person. He wants me to give him time to decide, which I would do if it wasn't for the roommate part. I know other people have gone through way worse than me right now, but it hurts so much inside. I just wish I could turn my feelings off. Why did he throw me away? I do not think a good man would do this to his wife. Make fun of me or laugh at me, I probably deserve it for what a fool I have been. How do I pick up these pieces and move on? I could wait for him if the roommate was gone, but it doesn't look like he will kick her out. Now for the top advice. You need to block all access to your bank accounts as soon as possible, before he drains them. Already done. Don't give him one dime, don't even speak to him. He's a louse and will simply keep putting you through the ringer if you allow him any access, whether by phone, text, in person, whatever. Honey, save your dignity. Don't give either of them the chance to hurt you more and keep mocking you in your face. Find a good divorce lawyer before you make any decision about moving out of your own house, and then let them have each other. You don't need such people in your life. Absolutely agree with this. They're married, and he's clearly breached his wedding vows, so divorce him and keep the house. My heart absolutely sank reading through this. I've been with my husband for 8 years too, and the thought of this happening would absolutely destroy me. I sure hope this woman is okay. Yes, don't leave the house. He has no job. He can leave. Does he pay for the house? I could be talking out of my butt here, but I think in some states and whatnot, it can work against you to leave the house, for sure with kids, not sure about property. Please look into the legal ramifications of leaving before you do leave, if you decide to. But he can buzz right off and he can leave. Do not leave your home. If they are uncomfortable, they can leave. I left because the house we lived in was in his dad's name, and I have no legal right to it. At least I think not. This was because I was saving up for our own house. Leave, cry, divorce, get over him and go live life in a way you deserve. This isn't someone worth fighting for. He just threw away 8 years because he was bored, instead of working hard and saving towards your dreams. Edited for a small update and more context, because so many people asked. First, I am genuinely shocked at the amount of strangers that have said kind things to me. I tried to respond to as many messages as possible. Thank you to everyone who had encouraging things to say and advice. It truly uplifted my spirit. There are a couple things I want to add and clarify. 1. The house is in my father-in-law's name. He lives there too and has dementia, so I cannot burden him with this. Plus, it is a single wide trailer falling apart. 2. Basically, my husband's gray area job is selling weed in a legal state, but he doesn't report any income. My state is legal for recreational, but not legal to sell. Also, I know for a fact my roommate is committing welfare fraud and disability fraud because she brags about it. 3. I did tell his family what was going on because I know he wouldn't tell them the truth. They offered condolences. He texted me and asked me why I told them, and now is claiming he never cheated on me, which hurts that he won't even take responsibility even when I screenshotted the proof. 4. I have reconnected with some family members he convinced me were no good to talk to, and they have been a huge support. I am also talking to a lawyer. 5. I can't stay there now for my safety. He's a felon with a weapon and concerned for my own mental health being in such a toxic environment. I am safe currently. 6. The mental relapse he is referring to is because I was diagnosed with OCD and BPD. He knows this, and I spent years in therapy to manage my feelings and symptoms.